Welcome to the August tour of my garden here in central Indiana. I tried to make one in July, it didn't happen, so let's hope that this month I can actually catch up and show you what is working and what is not in my garden. I love everything that is going on here, you guys. From the tomatoes producing to the nasturtiums just growing out of their containers. Everything is going really well so far. I gotta say that 2023 has been a great year for the garden. If you're new here, my name is Roxana and I garden in central Indiana. I am right at the border of zone 5 and 6, so just to keep it safe, I consider myself a zone 5 gardener. And I grow a combination of flowers and vegetables. I use garden beds, raised beds, containers, and one tiny window box where I just place everything that I can. And each year I love experimenting with plants and how they do together, how they do in certain areas of my garden. It's always a learning experience when it comes to gardening. And if you enjoy growing flowers or vegetables or both in your own place, I would love for you to consider leaving a comment, giving a like, or maybe subscribing if you haven't. My garden is very small. I mean, my neighbor's home is right there and the same thing on the other side. But I use every little corner that I can, and that's where you really get creative. When you have a small space and you want to grow a lot of things, you just find a way to do it. Let me start with this round hedge of boxwoods that I have here. I am facing the east side of my home, so all of these plants over here that I'm about to show you will be looking at only a few hours of sunlight during the morning, right before the afternoon hits, and then after that they're just in shade. And I think that for the amount of hours that they get in the sun, they are really performing really well. One of the things that I am experiencing this year for the first time ever is spider mites. Spider mites were never a problem for me in my garden, but this year a couple of areas with boxwoods specifically got hit with spider mites, and I am just super sad about it, because if you have been here before, you know that my boxwoods are one of my precious plants in my garden. I love using them in hedges and containers, and if I am losing a bunch of boxwoods because of spider mites, it's just going to be not a good year for me. So I have been spraying them. If you know, I hate spraying my garden with anything that will kill something, because normally it just kills everything. It doesn't really discriminate. But I have been trying to keep up with the spraying with my boxwoods. I have only done a couple of sprayings, and maybe this year they will look still sad, but I'm hoping that next year I can start early in the spring to treat the boxwoods, because this year I actually didn't notice them until literally this boxwood was dying, and then I was like, whoa, what's going on? Spider mites are definitely one of the big deals this year in my garden, but this hedge right here, this is one boxwood right here, and this is only the boxwood that I see that it could be already way too damaged, but I mean it's still looking somewhat decent, half of the shrub. So I am not going to start replanting anything. I'm not gonna go crazy and wanna replace any of my boxwoods just yet. I'll look at next year and see how they're doing, if they are trying to recuperate, and then I'll decide then. This year they're just gonna have to look a little bit sad. Now right here inside this boxwood hedge, I have a huge container. It's a plastic container that I purchased at Lowe's early in the spring. I put some soil in it, and then I placed a bunch of dahlias that I started from seed, and I also placed some coleus. And by the way, for the amount of sun that this coleus is getting here, it's looking a little bit sad in my opinion. But we also have been getting a lot of really harsh temperatures in the 90s, and these coleus, I don't think that they appreciate that much sun and that much heat. But I have been coming here. I really do not like coleus blooms, so sometimes this is how I spend a couple of minutes just pinching those. But the dahlias that I have here that I started from seed, which by the way is the first year that I start dahlias from seed. Normally I just wake up the tubers a few weeks before I'm ready to plant them outside, and my gosh, they are really gorgeous. I am definitely going to be saving tubers from these red ones, Not really sure about those purple ones, although I might save the tubers and give them to my mom because she does not mind that color. From all of the dahlias that I have started from seed, and by the way, there is a bee just still sleeping, still very early outside right now. From all of the dahlias that I have started from seed, these are my favorite. Look at that rich red color and that yellow center. These are definitely ones that I am going to keep. And if you know anything about dahlias that you start from seed, you never know what kind you're going to get. But if you do save the tubers from that dahlia, then you'll get the same dahlia for the following year. And this one is definitely gorgeous. But as I start walking away from this middle boxwood hedge, then I start getting into what I call the stepping stone pathway, which is still on the east side of the house. And this one will take me all the way towards the backyard, towards the back of the house. This pathway is one of my favorite areas in my garden. And honestly, they're all my favorite, but some of them still need a lot of work. But I feel like this area right here is already mature. It's already filling in. The trees that I have here are making a nice canopy. I do a lot of pruning for this. This is a forest pansy redbud, and this is a serviceberry amelanchier. I think that's how you say it. And I do keep on top of pruning these two guys so that they don't just block the pathway, but instead they make like a nice canopy. And I love this area right here. I have two boxwoods because I love boxwoods, one right here on each side. And because of the amount of rain that we have been getting in the last few weeks, really, they are just pushing all of the growth that they can, and that's why they look like this. But I'm not ready to prune them just yet. I could do it, but we are going to get some really harsh temperatures here next weekend. We're going to be in the upper 90s, and I know that they might just not like being pruned right now before that. So I am just going to wait probably towards the beginning of September. That's when I'll go and prune my boxwoods one last time. This right here, I have a hardy hibiscus right here. I believe this one is Evening Rose, which is a little bit darker leaf and a lovely pink color. I love this pink. This is a very rich color, and I love that. I do have a container with some gladioli that I started also earlier so that I could have earlier blooms. It already bloomed, but I'm going to show you a close-up of the bloom that I have there because I really love that color. And honestly, for the amount of sun that it gets here on the east side of the house, I think that those are keepers. So I am going to get a bunch of those corms for next year so that I can put them kind of everywhere. A lot of you have asked before about the type of stepping stones that I have here. These were saved from a dumpster, you guys. A few years ago, when my husband was working with a company, they were getting ready to redo this area of some clients' home, and they were getting rid of these stepping stones. And he called me, he sent me pictures and said, hey, these are going to the dumpster. Do you want them? Can you use them somewhere? And I was on my way in the pickup truck to pick those up because I knew that even if I didn't have a project for those, that I could definitely use them for somewhere in my home. And I had plenty of them to make a whole path in this corner right here. And I just love how they look like. They were free, they were safe from just going in the trash, and I am very happy with it. The gravel that I have in between them is the one that I get at Lowe's. I get a couple of bags every year just to fill in the spaces where my dog runs away and just kind of splashes all of the gravel around. But I really love the look of this. The way that I set this pathway over here when I got the stepping stone was I took all of the grass. I removed all of the grass that was here at the time, and I put some wheat fabric, like the really heavy duty that you can get. I put a couple of layers actually of it, and then I placed my stepping stones, and then I cover it with gravel. I still get weeds here every year. That's just because you have wheat fabric does not mean that you are not going to get weeds in between your paths. And yes, you can probably spray with a bunch of stuff, to prevent the weeds from coming up every year. But like I said, I try not to spray with anything. And honestly, because the weeds are growing in the gravel, they are super, super easy just to remove super, super quickly. And spending here 5 minutes every other week, it just keeps the pathway looking good or decent. And I don't really mind it that much. Right here next to my quick fire hydrangea that I have here, I have a area full of Japanese anemones, and some of them have started to bloom. I'm gonna show you a close-up. And these guys, I have to keep an eye on them because they do like to take over where I have them. And I actually have a nice hedge of grape timeless heucheras that you can't really see because they're already covered with the Japanese anemones. And honestly, I'm gonna have to probably move those plants, those heucheras underneath them, somewhere else because they definitely do not perform well there. They are literally covered by the foliage of the anemones. And unfortunately, that's what happens. I have an idea in my mind of how things are going to look like when they are mature, but the plants end up doing whatever they want. Especially if they are happy where they are, they will just want to take over. But I love Japanese anemones. I love how the foliage stays lower and that the blooms just come up in spikes. And I really, really love these guys. Right here behind my Japanese anemones, I have a shrub, a very, very special to me shrub. It is a Carya japonica rose, and it is blooming right now. This is the one that I was really, really sad about in the spring because it died all the way to the ground. Literally, the whole plant died to the ground because of the winter temperatures that we had, but I am happy to see that it's blooming. And I know that it's just going to be very well for future years. One of the things that I'm going to try to do this year is that I am going to take divisions and then I am going to place them in other parts of my garden, just in case something happens to this shrub in this space. At least I'll have some backups in other spots. One of the things that I did new for this stepping stone area is that I placed a couple of corten steel planters against the wall, and I have the bottoms for the planters, but I chose to just take them out so they can be just literally framing the soil there. The planters are kind of huge. They're about 26 inches tall, and I have two of them there. And I mentioned having a vision for how things will grow whenever they are mature enough. That's definitely something that it did not happen here. My vision completely trashed, just like the cosmos that are falling over on this side. I have a combination of geraniums, foxgloves, cosmos, and I have a few vines that are blooming here that are definitely vining. And I feel like the vines that were super, super tiny and that I did not expect to even survive, they are the ones calling the shots on these planters right here. The cosmos, I had a nice setup against the back where they had a trellis. My idea was the cosmos were going to be standing tall, then the foxgloves, then the geraniums, and then the vines. Obviously, everything just kind of mixed together. They're having a huge party right here, and I haven't even cleaned anything here. I won't even know where to start. And honestly, that's okay, because at least they're not like completely brown and dying. The cosmos are definitely done for the season, but the geraniums and the vines that I have here are just happening. The vines are even climbing up on my string lights, and I know when it's time to clean these planters, it's just going to be a huge mess. I just know that the vines that I have here and the geraniums that I have here do okay on this side of the house. So next year, if I want to plant those same plants, I'll just put them separately in their own containers, and hopefully they behave better. Right over here on this opposite side of where my planters are, I have my dahlia patch, as I call it. And I mean, the dahlias are doing okay. They're doing decent. They're not amazing, but you know, they're not dying. So I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful that I'm not going to be losing the tubers. I just think that maybe they need a little bit more sun. Like I said, this area right here is the east side of the house. So once it hits 2, maybe 1 or 2 p.m., they are completely in the shade. So I don't think that they are in the best spot for them to perform the way that I want them to perform. But I have a bunch here that I'm definitely going to be saving the tubers. I have a couple that it did not come through to what they were supposed to be, but that's fine. And I have a whole bunch of stakes in the ground placed a little bit in between the dahlias, and that I have a string kind of going in between them to sort of support the dahlias. And even though they are not the way that I want them to be, like I said, at least they're not dying. I can definitely save the tubers. And next year, this space right here, which will be empty where they are, is just going to be another opportunity for me to try different plants, maybe different annuals. Maybe a whole bed of rudbeckia will be nice here. I don't know. Let me know what you think, what I should plant here that will be limited in the amount of sun. So I do have a lot of perennials here. I have rosine geraniums, I have boxwoods, I have heucheras, I have millennium garlic, I have some vines happening, but I also have my lovely Annabelle hydrangea here that definitely needs to be divided ASAP. And I am going to be doing that here next month. Hopefully I can take you along with me when I do that, but this lovely hydrangea is just loving where it's at right now. You cannot quite see it, but I have a string from the top plant right there that is just holding half of the top of the plant, and the string kind of goes around and it attaches to the screen back porch that I have there. And I also have these little fences, as I call them. These are metal fences that are placed there. They're about, I don't know, maybe 20 inches tall, and they are holding these branches over here, and these guys are actually out. But if I didn't have any support for these Annabelle hydrangeas, they will be completely on the ground, and it's not that they will flap, it's just that they will expand where they are. And we have been getting a lot of rain, like I say, so a lot of the things are showing a little bit more flappier than normal. But if I didn't do this garden tour today, it's just going to be extremely hot, and then things are going to just start decaying with the temperatures that we're going to be getting. So this guy is absolutely gorgeous. This right here, I have about 4 plants right here. These are my lavender that I started from seed. I show you that, and I have a bunch of plants here with a few weeds, and oh my gosh, they are doing amazing. They smell amazing. So what's going to happen is that I have plenty of these plants, of these lavender plants that I started indoors. And what I'm going to do is that I am going to transplant them here next month where I want them to be. I really want a whole area full of them, and it may not be a bad idea to put them right there where I have the dahlias. But I love these guys. They haven't bloomed yet, although I have a tiny bloom here, right here. But I just love how they're performing, and they are actually kind of huge. I did not expect them to get this huge this first year. And I have others in another container that are also as big as these guys, and I'm really happy with their performance. Right over here on this arbor, I have a couple of clematis that I have. They bloom a little bit earlier in the season, and I do actually have a little cluster of blooms here. But I also planted a snail vine right here. This guy right here, this pale green that I have growing up this side of the arbor, and the vine that kind of wants to come here. These are one of the 2 snail plants that I saved, or that I started from seed indoors. I actually had quite a few, but I only decided to save 2 for myself, and the rest I gave away. And snail vines are new for me. I definitely have no experience growing them. And so far it's the middle of August, and I don't see any signs of blooms just quite yet. And I know that they can be a little bit slow to get to that point. Don't know that I will try this vine again for next year. I feel like maybe it just takes a little bit too much time for me to, you know, to get some blooms. So this arbor I actually got from gardeners. It has been there for a couple of years now, and I love it. I absolutely love it. And this is actually the same style of trellis that I have on the front of the garage that is holding one of my David Aston roses. I really like the look of this arbor. And if you guys are interested to know where I purchased a few things, I'll do my best to add a bunch of links in the description of this video, so just check those, and if I don't have it, just let me know in the comments and I'll try to give it to you. So this stepping stone ends literally where the back porch, where the screen back porch is on the back of the house. So right after this arbor, it starts the backyard, just to kind of give you an idea where we are. So this arbor is kind of like the entrance if you're coming from that way of the house, or it's kind of like the door towards the backyard. If you are wondering how long it has taken me to get this garden to the way that it's at right now, when we moved here about, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, there was nothing but grass, absolutely 0 plants, just grass. So it was a great canvas for me to start, and it has been taking me about 8 years to get this garden, to get the structures, to get the plants where I want them to be. I have moved several plants from several places. I can have a bunch of ideas or visions of how the plants are going to do, but at the end of the day, the plants will do what they will do, and it's just a matter of finding a good place, a good spot for them to survive. I am not going to go in depth of the raised bed of the kitchen garden where I'm growing most of my food, because otherwise this video is just going to be a couple of hours long. But I'm going to give you sort of like a general idea of how the back is, so that we can move forward to the other side of the house. I don't think that I've ever shown my fire pit area in a video before. It's not really something super nice. I have been wanted to do a little makeover. I still don't know what I want, and that's why I haven't done anything. This area is really only used in the fall whenever we are here just doing some fires outside, but other than that, it's just kind of in the way for the rest of the year. And I don't know, I tried doing a few things with it just hasn't worked out. It's just a combination of weeds, and this is really in the middle of the backyard where I have the grass area, and it's surrounded by the house, by the area where I have the raised beds, and by the garage. The garage is in a very poor condition. I have mentioned before that we live in a fixer-upper, and the garage is at the end, at the bottom of the list of priorities. So it is what it is. I don't really care for it too much, but I do use the space around it to grow vegetables and flowers. So I move you guys from my stepping stone, which is on this side of the house, to the backyard. So if you were standing somewhere in my garden, you will be in the backyard right now. And this is the other view from that side of the garden where my arbor is. And I have these two lovely boxwoods framing the arbor, and I have a line of boxwoods right here. Other than the spider mites targeting my boxwoods this year, my dog, the last couple of years, have found a few spots in my boxwoods where he decides to do his business. And that also has been bothering the boxwoods because they kind of dry whatever my boxer finds them. I do my best to keep him away from the boxwoods whenever I take him outside, but he's a dog. He's just going to find it eventually when I'm not looking, so there isn't much that I can do. I have my lovely standard hydrangea here that I show in another video. And I have a few pots and things here. I do have my little guy here that I don't know where I'm gonna put it. I need to find a good heavy duty container where to put it, because with a little bit of wind this thing just folds. It's not super heavy, and that's why I need to find like a really heavy planter for it. I just haven't really looked for one. And the sun is out, and probably I am way overexposed, but this is basically the area where I have most of the grass in my backyard. Like I said, when we moved here, we didn't really have any plants here, like zero plants. I think there was a bush that I think it was a weed, but it was 100% grass. Right about now, about 10 years later, I probably have about maybe 40%, if that much, of grass. Slowly you start, creating a garden bed. You slowly start expanding that garden bed, making it a stepping stone area, and that's just how it is. Honestly, I don't really care much for grass other than just having the space to have company. My kids are older, my kids are teenagers, so they don't really need a huge space for them to run around at this point. This right here is where I have the table that my husband built me. I think it was last year, and I have a few containers on top of it that are doing okay. Honestly, they are mostly in the shade for the rest of the year, and I'm really surprised at how they are performing. I think that I have a tomato plant right here. Yep, I have some of these black-eyed Susan vine that is just keeping everything together. I have a bunch of lavender that it's blooming. I think that I have two small terracotta containers with lavender. Oh, this is lovely. And I also have some of the yarrow that I started from seed as well, and it's blooming. And I also have some sedum, some perennial sedum here. This table was supposed to be empty, free for me to use it as I needed it throughout the season, but I ended up having some extra plants whenever I was done planting everything in the spring, and I didn't just want to give them away or throw them away, so I just put them here. And obviously they're doing okay. This black-eyed Susan vine, it's really nice, and it started a little bit on the weak side for me. It didn't really look like that much when I took it outside, and it was struggling whenever I took it outside, but it has been performing so well where I have it, whether it's in a container or in a huge planter. I really like it. I moved the chairs out of the way around the fire pit so you can have a better idea of how these things are set up. So I have my arbor over there where I have the boxwoods. I have my HOSELINK right here that pretty much takes care of all the back of the house. I have a raised bed right over here where I have a cucumber that it's definitely done for the season. I have a bunch of zinnias, tomatoes, melons, peppers. I mentioned before that this bed will probably end up being gone for next year. It just really gets a lot of shade from my neighbor's tree. And if you're looking at this way, this is the way that my property is set up. So this bed is really running along the property line, and that tree is the one blocking most of the sunlight for most of the morning. And this bed really gets shaded a lot. So a lot of the things that I had here in the early spring did not do that well this year. And over here, this is where I have my raised beds. The rest of my raised beds are all the way back here. I think that originally this was the driveway, the original driveway to the house. There was nothing here, like I said, other than grass. And this is the area where we built a bunch of raised beds. My husband built this black arbor over here. Well, he pretty much built all of the raised beds, honestly. I added all this area with all of these mulch that I really like. And I have a combination of flowers, vegetables. I do really pack my areas in my raised beds with flowers and vegetables. And I love doing that. I absolutely love doing that. And this is the area where I grow most of the vegetables, really. I do have a couple tomatoes here and there, but this is really the spot where if I am growing something to eat, this is where I will find it. I have right here in front of this arbor, I have 2 green stacks, one on each side, and I only have 3 layers on each green stack. They normally have like 5 layers that will make them really tall, but I was afraid to have them shade whatever is on the back. Right over here along this way, I have 2 long raised beds where I have marigolds, rudbeckias, straw flowers, dahlias, millet grass, and I did install, well, my husband did install a shade cloth for the tomatoes that are all the way here. I have 10 tomatoes on this raised bed and 10 tomatoes over here, and they are exploding with tomatoes. I have harvested so much tomatoes already that it's crazy, and I am super thankful for it. But the flowers that I have here, the cut flowers that I have here, are really just making this area pop, in my opinion. And I really love doing that. Combining flowers with the vegetables, I think is just something that it really speaks to me. Bringing the pollinators, because we have a bunch of flowers, just helps everything else around them. The vegetables do take advantage of that. Oh my gosh, these dahlias are gorgeous. And right about this point, the cages that my husband built for the tomatoes are completely covered by the tomato vines. And if we go on the other side over here, I have more raised beds that I have going all the way on the property line, well, in my side of the property, but they are basically around the property line all the way to the back, like literally all the way to the back alley, because thankfully I don't have a HOA, so you know, I can pretty much do whatever I want. The vegetable garden is producing a lot. Let me show you these tomatoes. These right here are orange jazz tomatoes. I don't know if you can tell. All of that gorgeousness. Okay, look at these tomatoes. This was not supposed to be a harvest video, but my gosh, look at all of these tomatoes. I am going to take this inside really quick and we'll continue our garden tour. As I mentioned before, the vegetable garden has been producing amazing. I love to combine the cut flowers with the vegetables because it just makes me happy. Whenever I need to get a bouquet, I come straight here, or if I need to grab some tomatoes or some jalapenos, it's just a perfect spot for growing both. And I am really thankful that we did this. I don't know why we waited so long. This kitchen garden area is only about 4 years old. This is my 4th season growing vegetables here, and this is also my 4th season with growing vegetables and cut flowers from seed. Before that, I did not know anything about growing from seed, but having a vegetable garden, it has definitely introduced me to other aspects of gardening that I just love. The vegetable area where I have my raised beds is right over here on this side next to the detached garage. It's not heated, so I do have a little bit of space there for overwintering a few things. I'm not really the best at that, only because I get so busy during the fall that the last thing that I can think of is moving things in the garage. But these right here are my lovely nasturtiums. I do have a nice area right here new for me this year where I got a bunch of curtain steel beds, and I have nasturtiums, rudbeckia. I have a bunch of dahlias and other vegetables growing in these containers, but my goodness, my nasturtiums are definitely still in the show this year. I have a bunch of different nasturtiums. I have some dwarf Alaskan gold, I have some tip-top mahogany, and I honestly can't remember that variety. And right here attached to the garage is where I have my trellis that is in the same set as my other trellis, as my other arbor that I have over there on the stepping stone pathway. But this guy right here is holding my Bathsheba, which is a David Aston rose, and it is probably one of my favorite David Aston roses. And I actually have another one in a container that is also doing amazing, you guys. And I have found that that rose is actually a repeat bloomer. So here and there, after it gives a nice flush in the spring, here and there it just gives me a couple of blooms, and my goodness, I love that. So I am going to kind of cut the video right here in front of my lovely yellow door of the garage door right there, and I am going to take you all the way towards the west side of the house. That way we can just walk that way and meet back here in a few minutes.